everybody. I see we have some people back who joined us at the last webinar. I appreciate that you have returned, and this is a bit of a continuation of the market research webinar that we did a couple of weeks ago, but it's also sort of expanding on some of those ideas. And with the amount of time we have today, of course, we're not going to be able to do a whole lot of exercises, which as a former adjunct professor at the college level, I like to do the exercises. I like to help people work through their own ideas and apply them by using the handouts and thinking through some of, your own potential scenarios. But in the interest of time, here's what we're going to do. We've got a mostly lecture, mostly just talking and sort of getting an introduction to the topic. And then I've also included a lot of the handouts, and I will show you those so that because we don't really have time to work through them all today, and sometimes it's hard to come up with, an example on the fly, that you would be welcome to take those. And as Meredith said, you'll get a copy of the slideshow. So all of the exercises or handouts that you can do on your own are included as links in the PowerPoint. So please feel free after we're done today to go back through and work through some of these yourselves if you want to, or I see Tim's on the call again. If you find these useful to help your clients, you're more than welcome to use some of the handouts with your clients as well. And then also we are going to offer that Harrison and I both, if you've met us before, we're going to talk to you a little bit about what we do here in a minute when we get started with the slides. But we also are offering that if you are a client of ASBTDC, or you want to become a client of ASBTDC and you haven't really worked with us yet, we are presenting this series because we want you to know more about our market research services, which are free to our clients in Arkansas. And also this idea of Lean Canvas is still actually, it's an idea that's been around for more than 20 years, and it's still a very useful tool. So I will say this, if you find it useful to work with someone like me as your coach, through my work as a tech consultant here, I can help you with your Lean Canvas. I can help walk you through it, kind of coach you, be a sounding board. So I would offer that, that if you are wanting to try this, but you're not really sure how to do it on your own, but you want to set up a meeting, we make our calendars available. You find a time that's convenient. We could probably do it by Zoom and go over some of this using your own ideas and applications. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat too. It looks like Tim has dropped something in there, AI-driven tools, or a new support platform for recommendations for entrepreneurship. Great, right up our alley. I mean, all of these resources are very helpful. And we are in a time of, I guess I'm going to use this term, self-paced learning. A lot of our webinars, we do want to be with a live person like us today, but we also are making this available as a recording for people who, signed up but weren't able to attend. And then there are a lot of good classes or things that you can take. And actually, I've included a lot of those links today, because I think this is a topic that, like I said, we'll just barely touch on today, but it's definitely worth investigating and reading some more, maybe taking some of the online courses or watching some of the videos. So we've just packed this discussion today with a lot of extra stuff if you really want to get into this whole realm of Lean Canvas and its value as a business planning tool. Okay, so our last webinar was called Who's Your Customer? Market Research. This one is called Who's Your Customer? A Lean Canvas Primer. So how do I advance the slides? Oh, there we go. Clicking on the monitor. So can you see the ideas in the business slide now? I'm used to having a preview, and I don't have a preview. So
yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what do we do here at the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center? Most of the time when we work with clients, a client will come to us because they have a particular project related to either a pre-venture, meaning they haven't started their business yet, or if it's a small business, they need help with a particular aspect of the business. So they come to us saying, oh, I've got this project or I've got this need. But we also have a number of business consultants in the Little Rock office and then offices around the state. And I'll show that map in a minute, where clients will come to us and continue to work with us. So we have ongoing relationships, and it may not mean that you're here every week, but it could mean you need us now, and 6 months from now, you'll call back up again and go, I have something else I want to talk about, or what about this? And honestly, we are there for almost the entire life cycle of a business, from before you filed your legal structure in the state of Arkansas, all the way through to maybe you're ready to sell the business, or even acquire another business. So a lot of times our clients will walk in and say, I don't really know what I don't know, and they're not really sure where to start. So we're good people to talk to also, just as a sounding board, try to figure out what you're really asking for, because there is a language of business. And the biggest thing we want you to know is that we speak that language and you're not alone. So here's where our locations are across the state. We are housed within institutions of higher learning. Most of us are hosted at university campuses, and there are several people there's a dozen or more of us in the Little Rock office, and probably as many again in Fayetteville. And then we have a couple of outposts where there's only one person, or maybe one or two or three people in some of the smaller communities. But overall, we service clients in all 75 counties in Arkansas. Yay. And we also do a lot of outreach, so that a lot of times you'll see our business counselors out in the community, or presenting at a chamber of commerce or an economic development event. So we, as I mentioned, we help with startups, expansion and growth, and then that commercialization piece is really us. Me and Harrison and a colleague of ours in Northwest Arkansas, we get paid to support technology-based businesses from startup through to commercialization. And commercialization is really the term that the technology industry tends to use when they're talking about, from lab to launch, or from bench to bedside, when they're talking about inventions that have a STEM underpinning, they're science, technology, engineering, math related, and they are some kind of science or some type of R&D. And so those, believe it or not, those businesses, as from the point they are ideas to the point they are launched in the marketplace, are different than Main Street businesses, or just a mom and pop shop, or even a retail establishment. So our work is focused on these high growth companies. And one of the two distinguishing features about technology-based businesses, when we talk about technology, we mean they're generally business to business. So their ultimate customer may be an end user, but their initial customer is actually someone that's helping them build and deliver the solution to the marketplace. So business to business. And then another thing I would say is, a lot of times we're talking about high costs in the first couple of years and really virtually no revenue. And it's taken me a while. This is it's my work anniversary. So this week I've been here a year. It's taken me a while to learn all this and learn the industries and start to understand the fields of science that I'm attuned to and that I'm supporting. And it's constant. It's like learning something new every day. But I do want to say that it's exciting working in this field, because we are looking at trends in the industry. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. And we are constantly canvassing and understanding what's happening in industry, and how our clients are helping contribute to the change that happens because of technological innovation. So we provide training, we provide research and information, and this consulting I was talking about earlier, we do provide one-on-one consulting for all kinds of business planning purposes. And then our other consultants, like everybody but me, actually helps with things like prepare loan requests, debt financing, financial projections, helping with your operations challenges. So I'm really more in the startup space, and also helping make connections for the things that you need in a new technology venture. So we call that the T in ASBTDC. We're the technology folks. And that's me. My title is Innovation Specialist. I'm Karen Bergh, with H on the end. And then Harrison, Market Researcher. And my work is funded by the federal and state technology, the FAST Partnership Program, which also means, by the way, that I am uniquely positioned to help with this program. This, and I'm saying this as I'm looking over here because that's where my slides are. I can't see them here. These are the Small Business Innovation Research grants, are federal grants from 11 different agencies in the US government, and they call them America's Seed Fund. And those funds are provided specifically to help with that lab to launch process I was talking about earlier. We won't spend a lot of time talking about SBIR. In fact, we really won't touch on it, but I'm using that as sort of my framework to help you understand that this whole lean canvas idea is something that's really, that started from and grew from the explosion of entrepreneurial companies and fast growth, high growth companies because of Silicon Valley and the technological changes that have happened over the past 25 years, I'll say, because of the knowledge revolution. It's knowledge and information, folks. We're living in the digital age, and technology as a broad term has made so many things possible, exponentially more, faster and better and more. And so a lot of our innovators are people who are joined that space to help iterate the next great thing that, oh, by the way, a lot of us didn't know that we needed until it was invented. But we're going to talk about customer discovery, and we're going to talk, let me get that slide up. So the Lean Canvas model is meant to address how people respond to these innovations and what is the customer's role in helping you develop a product or process that is technology based, and how do we help in assisting you with the knowledge of the marketplace, the industry, or that B2B sort of model that I was talking about earlier. There, when people use the word supply chain, they mean all the pieces of the chain that it takes from the inventor or the person who produces through to the people who refine it or manufacture it or distribute it or ship it, or all those pieces of taking something from a raw product or a raw material or something, unfinished to something finished that gets used ultimately by some end user. So we are talking about those kinds of businesses typically. Okay, so what is Lean Canvas? I know you've been dying to know. If you haven't been exposed to it, it is literally a one-page business plan template. And this one was designed by Ash Maurya, and it was inspired by the Business Model Canvas. And Business Model Canvas is also a one-pager, but it had a few blocks on it that the Lean Canvas doesn't have. And Lean Canvas was sort of a modification to help startup founders focus on key aspects of their business idea without having to write a business plan. Okay, so what does a one-pager do if you've got all these little spaces that you can write in that help you visualize and plan for your company's future? What is it for? It's for startups or existing companies. It's fast. It can be developed in 20 minutes instead of weeks that it could take to develop a business plan. It's concise. It forces you to focus only on the essentials of your product and your way of delivering it. It's portable. You can literally take this anywhere. It's effective because if you're showing somebody your Lean Canvas and it's a one-pager, they can see it, they can visualize what you're talking about, and you can point to the different places while you're explaining your story, the story of your business. It's also iterative. It encourages rapid change and allows startups to quickly test their hypotheses and make adjustments based on feedback. Oh, so, okay, so this is a really important point. I put it on the slide where it says verification of the business hypothesis. What do we mean by that? Oh, I feel like again, I'm unpacking this, so bear with me. I talk a lot. I know I do. And I'm in my head too, but when we're talking about hypothesis, we literally mean that it's an idea. It's just an idea until you test it with customers. And I don't know how many of you watch Shark Tank, but I watched it again last night and I was just laughing because I saw this point illustrated very clearly. This two women got up to pitch their idea. It's a startup, so they're selling this idea and they already have a few people interested in it. But it was basically, you remember the slime products that parents use with kids, and slime is messy and it's something you play with a little bit like Play-Doh, but it's really icky and sticks. And also, problem with slime when the product first came out, my kids are grown now, but I remember it, was that if you get it on carpet, or if you get it on fabric, or if you get it on anything in your house, it never comes out. It's like horrible. Slime is fun to play with, but it's really destructive in your household. So these women had developed this business model where they were going out, throwing slime parties, and basically making slime an event and taking it out to malls or daycares or schools. And the sharks, if you watch Shark Tank, it was hilarious watching them just kind of go, this is not a business. This is like a hobby. And one of them was very kind. And he said something like, well, it's cool what you're doing. And I think it's useful because I don't like the slime mess either. But I think this is an idea that doesn't have enough of a market that you can turn it into a viable business, at least not the kind that we as sharks would want to invest in for a return on our investment. And the founders, these two women, moms, they just looked shell-shocked, like, what? But he picked up this little soft thing that they had made that was the slime holder. It was like a little tiny, almost like a plush toy that they had made that you could zip and unzip and put the slime in it. So it was a slime carrier. And the shark held up the slime carrier and he said, this is a business. He said, you sell this slime carrier and you have a much bigger market because you've got all kinds of slime being sold already all over the United States in the major, retail stores. And if people like slime, but they don't like the mess it makes, but they like to carry their slime to parties and kids' parties and sleepovers, sell those. Those are cute. So I was kind of laughing while I was thinking about it because that was customer discovery. That is exactly what we're talking about. They had a business model that wasn't really big enough to make an impact and make them a lot of money. It wasn't the kind of thing that made them an investable business. But along the way, they had created this cute little, probably home sewn thing that could be mass manufactured and sold on shelves. And they got customer feedback from the sharks, because the shark is a customer. If you're asking them to buy into your company, that is a type of customer. So if you're a startup and you're asking a venture capitalist or any kind of private investor for money, or the federal government, which is my area, if you're asking the federal government to invest in you, you need to be able to get feedback about your hypothesis to see whether it's going to be accepted in the marketplace, to see if it's going to be a big enough impact. You see if there is market potential, meaning do you have a big enough segment of the market or various segments of the market who ultimately will buy this because it really solves a problem. Okay, I think I've said enough. So why Lean Canvas versus the business plan? So I think of this as the difference between a startup and a company. So a startup is a way to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. Like I just said, I gave an example of the little slime company. But a company is actually a business that sells a product or service in exchange for revenue or profit. Notice the word profit. You can be a startup and still not be profitable And you can be a company and not be profitable. But I guess what I'm saying is to really gain traction in the marketplace, you need to have been in business long enough where you hit product market fit. You found enough people with the right money, whether they're the intermediaries I was talking about in the supply chain earlier, or whether they're the end users like consumers out there somewhere. You found enough of them where you are a going concern, you can pay all your bills, you're making more money than you're taking in, and you're able to pay yourself and potentially the investors, or pay back the loan, or whatever else you needed to, to the people that you had to bring into the business to help it grow, you have to pay them back, right? So what business plan, by the way, if you've ever written one or used one, and I've done many in my life, they sit on the shelf. People write business plans because they need to get a loan, but you rarely ever look at a business plan again. I don't know how many times. I mean, it was my job in higher ed administration years ago to write the plan and then to write a summary every year to remind my bosses of what we said we were going to do last year, that we are tracking and, revising this year so that we can make improvements for the coming year, because nobody ever looked at the plan again. So Lean Canvas is great because you can carry it around, you can change it, it's on the fly, it doesn't have to sit on the shelf. And I know I'm belaboring that point, but now I will just run you through, and I'll show you the visual here in a minute. But these are the questions that the Lean Canvas piece of paper asks you to answer. Obviously the problem, because if you have a solution, you are looking to solve a problem that a group of customers face. And so the fun part about the Lean Canvas is when you write these, you're challenged to say it in a really concise way. So what is your problem? What is the problem that you think you've identified with your target customers? And then what is the solution in just as few words as possible? And then your key metrics, what is going to tell you when you've been successful or when you need to pivot or change something. Metrics in a startup also help you measure your progress. So it doesn't mean that it's the end game. It just means you're hitting milestones. And then you're also using that data to drive decisions. Very helpful. The unique value proposition clearly states, okay, that's a link in the slide. And so when you get the slides, you can see the draft of the unique value proposition, the kind of the exercise that I used to use in my classes, my marketing classes at college. But I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute too, because I don't have time to click on it right now, but it's for you to use later. And then also the unfair advantage. And this has many names. The unfair advantage, some people also sometimes call the competitive advantage. But it's really, what are the advantages your company uniquely holds? Or you can also look at this as like, what are the potential barriers that the other people who are trying to address the same problem that you are, what are some things that they face that they can't quite overcome or deliver that you can? So thinking about your competitors, whether they're direct or indirect, thinking about what you can do that they can't is also important. And also the unfair advantage is like, what do we do that's like amazing, that's just like better than anybody? And it's important to know what that is, not just what you think it is, but how your customers see your unfair advantage. Now, this is harder to do than you think. Harrison and I were playing with this before we got into this. And I was saying, I could try to do this on my life coaching practice. And I do have a side hustle. And I started trying to describe my own, why would people hire me as a life coach? It's really hard to talk about yourself or to express that value in a way that actually is true and that resonates with your customers. It's better if they tell you, if they can give you that feedback and articulate it. And why do I say that? Because think about it, guys, even in life, when you want to know what your value is, it helps to have a mirror, like a reflection, your friends, your family saying, oh, this is great about you, or I love this about you. Okay, that's what customers are doing. They're basically saying, I love what you're doing. I'm willing to pay for it. This is why I love it. Or this is why it's not working for me. I need you to change these things. So we talk about customer discovery in terms of like wanting to know how other people see what we're saying is our solution to their problem, right? Okay. So here's a value proposition template you can use if you want to. So-and-so offers whatever that is to whoever your target audience is, whatever segment you've identified, and you can do a value proposition for different segments better than any known competitors by, and then just list those things. What are those unique features or benefits that your target customer actually values? And you need, if you don't know what they value, you can't fill this out. So you might not be able to say exactly what it is. I think it's helpful to ask. And that's why we put this in the category of market research. Okay. Then more questions on the Lean Canvas. That link leads you to the pain points, and I'll refresh your memory. If you were here at the last webinar, we talked about pain points, and we tried to do some of these with the jar opener. What are the pain points? What is the problem that customers need you to solve for them in terms of the jar opener? But you can do that exercise on your own later. And then channels, when the Lean Canvas prompts you to write down who your channels are in just a few brief words, you are saying which channels your customers use most often to find your information or to use your product. And so that's, advertising vehicles usually. Channels can also be, and marketing people sometimes conflate these terms, but channels can also be your distributors or your dealers, the go-between person. So in business to business, the channel can actually be the car dealer, or the channel can actually be the manufacturer. So I just want to note that too, that channel is sometimes used interchangeably in both meanings. Structure is the cost associated with operating your business, and you need to have a handle on that. And if you don't know, you need to get some help defining that. And it is a mental exercise, but it's also fact-finding and getting real information, because the more you know about your expenses and running your business, especially when you're new in that first year, the smarter you're going to be in responding to the changes and being able to sort of have the pulse on the health of your company. And I can't stress this enough after teaching marketing for, 15 years in my other life in California. I cannot stress how important it is when I would tell my students and now my clients that a hobby is not a business. If you don't have a handle on your numbers, both your cash flow and your profit, and, keeping track of money going in and money going out, then you're not going to be able to build and scale the company. So even if you don't like it, you don't like to have to know the finances, you don't like to have to know how to read a profit and loss statement, you're going to have to learn it. And you're going to have to probably hire a bookkeeper and a CPA and get on your numbers and know what those metrics are. This is not playing, y'all. This is serious. And then your revenue streams, how are you going to generate revenue? Now, this goes to actually like different types of business models. So if you don't know how your customers are going to pay you, if you don't know what their preferred way to pay you is, if you don't know how you're going to deliver that, let's say it's an application. I have a lot of technology-based clients who come to me and say, I've got an application. And I say, well, how do people get it? And they say, well, they download it. It's on the, the app stores for their phones, for their devices. How much are you charging for it? $4 a download. Okay, well, how many customers do you need to, make a profit? And what else, what other expenses do you have going into the company and help deliver this app? But think about that. At $4 a pop, how much advertising would you have to do, or how much more would you have to stretch your company to get enough $4 downloads where it actually makes a living for you, much less a company that's investable? So that's why we live in the subscription model now, that so many developers have, create this business model called software as a service. You may see those initials SaaS, but software as a service means that the buyer then is probably going to be a corporation or an organization that can pay more money to have a subscription. They're paying you a contract fee for monthly services, and that gives your company the base to continue offering customer service, to continue making upgrades to the application, to pay for all the people, the software programmers, customer reps, the chat bot or whatever you have, to help maintain those relationships and keep the product improving. So the revenue streams have to be related to the way you deliver the product, and also the way you make money, and the way that your customers are going to be willing to pay for that and engage with you. And here's the, I mentioned earlier, that link in the last slide was just to remind you that you can go in and do these exercises on your own to understand what currently is happening and what the needs of your customer may be and what pain points they have. And then also, is what you're going to offer cheaper, faster, more convenient, higher quality, whatever the real difference is. You have to be able to define that. And then also understand the demographics and the psychographics, the actual makeup of the group of people who have these characteristics in common, and be able to define those. So what is Lean Canvas going to help me do? Well, it's going to help you create your business model. It's going to help you think through all those pieces as you do your planning. And it's going to require, by requiring you to answer them and write them down, by the way, not just do them in your head. You are, in a way, you're documenting and codifying, and you're also, if you've got a team around you, which you should, I hope, you've got the team agreeing on how you're going to run the business and what its value is, and what also the pieces are that are either good and solid, or that where there are gaps that need fixing or improving. So I included this link from Investopedia, which I don't really have time to click on that right now, but take a look later, because what is there are all of the different types of business models. So earlier I mentioned like software as a service. So there's a whole list of them, like there's retail, software as a service, freemiums. We were talking about this the other day, about freemium is actually a business model, which is, you buy, originally you get something for free, electronically, maybe digitally delivered, and you fall in love with it and you want to have it, or maybe you want to have more of it, or different features, or there's more advanced features, or whatever this thing is, whatever the offering is. And so, the idea is they get you hooked, and then you have to start paying for it to get more of it, or to, I say they, I mean us marketers, that there are all these different business models to help define the way the money is going to come in. And so, oh gosh, there's lots of them. Let me see, I made a few notes. There's affiliate business models. One of my favorite is, they call it the razor blade model. And that is, do you remember like when Gillette, did I think it was Gillette that did the 5-blade handle for the razor, and that's tech, and that costs a lot, and they have to manufacture that piece of technology. But then the way that they would really make money was on the replacement blades, because you have to keep buying them. So that there are a lot of different businesses that operate that way. And actually, one of the genius actually was Dollar Shave Club was one of the first online only razor blade subscription delivery service. You could buy your razor blades if you would use the old handle, the old-fashioned handle, the kind where you open it up and stick the razor blades in. You could pay for that and have it delivered to your home monthly. And this was very popular with young men. And then other online innovators figured out how to sort of emulate that or add something to it. I think the other one was called Harry's. Harrison was familiar with those when I talked about them the other day. So that's razor blade. And then there's like Franchise is considered, a franchise is considered a business model. Pay as you go is considered a business model. And so the point of that is become familiar with the different types of business models. If you're trying to figure out how I'm going to make money and turn this into a real business, am I a brokerage? Am I, franchise? What am I? How is this going to work? There is no one size fits all, and nobody can really make that determination for you. But it's another part of why you need to talk to your customers to understand what's going to work for them. So what about the one pager? So this is just a visual view of this. And I thought this was a nice sort of graphic because it's so simple. But if you start at the top left, and I mentioned all these in the list earlier, and it gave a long explanation, but here's the short view of it. Start from the top left and go clockwise. List the problems that you see that you're trying to solve in this target audience, right? List your solution. Maybe those are a couple of unique things about your particular solution. The unique value proposition, how is it different from the others and worth buying from you versus them? And then unfair advantage. What is it that you can't be copied? I mean, what's so special? It's that secret sauce, and it's hard to define sometimes, but that's brand related, right? And then customer segment. Who is your real customer? And that's not just the one you wish it was. That's the one who has the ability and the desire to pay you for it. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding like I'm preaching, but I hear people say, if I say, here's your customer, and they go, everybody. No way everybody can be your customer. Not really. Okay, and then the channels selling. And then if you pop down to the bottom right, revenue streams, that's what we were talking about earlier, those types of revenue streams. And then the cost structure and knowing what your most significant costs are. And here is for your play and your fun or your business. Later, here's the editable version, and that link will take you to a template where you can type into this pretty one, and I've got the little prompts all there for you. So go through each one of these and answer the questions, and try to do it as short as you can. You don't have a lot of space, right? So that is free, and those are online too. I have those online, and then I've included this one also because I wanted you to know that there's another version that's not quite the same thing, but it's another one pager, and it's something that we use a lot with our clients in technology, and it's called the quad chart, which I did not know till I started this job a year ago. But the quad chart, federal funders love this because it is specific to technology R&D based type businesses for the type of funding that I assist with. And it has a lot of the same components as the Lean Canvas. It's got the value proposition on the left. It's got, on the bottom right, it's got the need and the problem, and it's got the target customer. Those are all things that we talked about on Lean Canvas. Market opportunity is actually a little more specific in that bottom right corner. The market opportunity is literally, they want to know the size of the market, and they want to know what you know about its potential for growth or for you to enter that market as a new offering. And then on the bottom left, the research need, TRL is technology readiness level. And the government looks at innovators and looks at what they're cooking up in the labs and cooking up in the garage with their garage inventions. If you're a MacGyver inventor and you need some research to deliver what you're doing out there in the shed, they're looking at what stage of readiness it's in and where they potentially will enter into the development of that as potential funders. So they want to know where you are, how much you've done, what else you need to get done, because the money that comes from the seed funding that I was talking about earlier, the SBIR seed funding, the money comes from helping move you along that spectrum of commercialization or product or process readiness. And that means if you ask for money, you're going to demonstrate what you need the money for. It's usually R&D, and it's usually got milestones associated with it. And you're going to report back to the government what you got done and the significance of the research or the new product that emerged from that R&D or that testing period. So it's validation. It's all about that first phase is all about validating the idea, which involves customers, but in the case of technology, a lot of times those customers are actually partners. They could be a manufacturer, they could be, you know, a federal lab, they could be a university-based lab. The partner could even be, like I have some docs who are working on some innovations, and their partner might be another clinic or a regional clinic with patients. Or it might be Johns Hopkins or Mayo Clinic, because they need to be able to run that validation through a partner that has access to patients. And then, you know, could be drug delivery, but it could be other things. I have some doctors who are inventing applications that help measure things that they need patients to try in a controlled setting, you know, with all the proper approvals and credentialing in order to test those safely with patients. So TRL really has to do with, you know, the level that it's going through. That the technology is where it's going. Okay. Did I skip forward? I may have gone too far. Oh, sorry. Somehow I skipped some slides. Oh, sorry, Harrison. I think this is where you help me out.
Absolutely. So I know that a few of you, it looks like we're in our last Who's Your Customer webinar. And I know, so you're probably familiar with our market research services here at ASBTDC, but in case you need a refresher, what we provide is considered secondary market research. So we are providing information from databases, a lot of proprietary data that we're able to access and provide to you, and the consultants are able to provide that in the context of developing marketing plans and business plans and things of that nature. So customer discovery, though, deals more with primary research. So this is research that you are going to be performing yourself through things like direct interviews, surveys, and other methods like that. So customer discovery in the context of lean canvas and startup development is really just this process of deeply understanding your target customers and their needs, their pain points, and their behaviors. So this is a kind of a proving ground for your ideas, right? And all the assumptions that you're making that Karen had just mentioned. So it's actually a really exciting part of this process because it's an iterative process where you're able to test out these different ideas and assumptions. And if something doesn't work, well, you're not necessarily on the hook financially. This is a way for you to fine tune that idea and figure out exactly what it is, what are the problems that need to be solved here, and how can your ideas be fashioned into a solution for that. So in case any of you were on that last webinar, the Who's Your Customer market research webinar, Karen had a really great quote, and that is, fall in love with the problem and not your solution. And I think that really is illustrated here in this customer discovery process, because it is a way for you to it's a way for you to not be so in love with one idea that may end up not working down the road or may need to have some tweaks made to it, right? So if you fall in love with if you fall in love with the problem and figuring out what those problems are, then you're able to then you would then be able to really to sorry, losing my train of thought here. Anyway, so this idea development cycle here you see in the middle, you have your raw idea, you're placing it into this proving ground with potential customers. This is also a way to find out to identify your customers and those different stakeholders at different parts of the process. Like Karen mentioned, for some of our technology clients, This is not just a discovery process for the problems and pain points of their end user, but for the problems and pain points of different shareholders, different stakeholders rather, along the way. Um, so, Karen, do you have anything that you would add there for that cycle?
Um, no, I think you covered it, but I think, as I'm looking at it again and thinking about it, because all learning is iterative. We're learning while we're doing this. It's the idea that concept really turns into a plan. That's why I put this as the headline to remind myself. It actually turns into a plan that can be executed because everybody has great ideas. There's no shortage of great ideas. I don't know. Everybody is a garage inventor in their own mind, but the point is that it doesn't become real and doesn't have value in the marketplace unless you can execute it. And so this sounds like we're banging a drum, but we really are. The best way to find out, even if your dreams are crushed in that first year or two, or you have to completely develop something that you didn't think it was, like the women who weren't going to do slime parties, but who were told that they really should just sell the slime carrier, the little companion, that, you need this part of the process. You can't skip it. So test and refine your assumptions, learn from them, and then you will be able to execute because you will potentially have better product market fit.
And Karen, I would add really quickly that I think this also fits into, I know in that last webinar, we talked a little bit about not being afraid to share your intellectual property in a smart way, right? Not holding that, keeping that too precious, right? You may have a great idea, but if you're not sharing it with the right people and surrounding yourself with those people who can help iterate that idea, who can help change that idea and grow that idea,
Yeah.
and scale it up once get further down the road. This is I think this understanding and not being afraid of the customer discovery iteration process is a good exercise for not being
Yeah.
for sharing your intellectual property in a smart
And I
way.
want to add something to that. I want to add something to that, Harrison, because again, I'm learning and it's an iterative process as we're going through this with our clients. I have some clients who think that validation means telling you about my wonderful thing, and I'm telling you about it. I'm telling you about it. Oh, and I'm telling him about it. I'm telling her about it, but they're not listening. They are not getting feedback. They are just trying to sell you, because if you like it and you tell them, I love that idea, that validates them. And a lot of innovators are this way. Please do not make the mistake of walking into this realm and thinking that your whole purpose in bringing this to market is getting people to like you and to validate you, or to tell you that this is the greatest idea since sliced bread. That is not the kind of feedback you want. You are not looking for people to validate you and your idea. You are looking for a reflection that can tell you how on track you are or not. And so we included this extra slide because this is part of the Lean Canvas and some of the books that, if you look, I'm going to share some of the books and some of the resources that you can get into if you want to delve into this topic and understand it more deeply. But this is in the book about, and notice that the next step after these customer validation, you see that little circle that says discovery validation, it spills out and keeps going to customer creation. Why? Because if you're in a relationship and they're seeing that you're improving your minimum viable product or whatever it is you're offering, if they're seeing that you're listening to them, then they're going to keep coming back and they're going to tell their friends. But also, the feedback is important because it can help you revise your business model or your offering. Let me give an example. Locally, we have a local pizza restaurant, and the owner told this story recently where everybody loves the pizza. They come for the lunch specials. This is not a tech-based company, except that they do use computers and a point of sale, system to support the customer purchases and managing their inventory and all that. But not that's a different kind of technology. What we're talking about is they're delivering food and an experience around that food. And they started offering $1 wings 1 day a week, sort of as a marketing tool, as a loss leader to get customers to come in and try the pizza and the other offerings. Their margins, the profit that they make on all the other menu items is greater than what they were offering through the wings, right? $1 wings on Monday. Customers loved their wings, and they started saying, why don't you put the wings on the menu? Okay, that's just a real basic example that we thought you were going to love our pizza the best. And then we offered you the wings, and turns out our wings are pretty dang good. And maybe they're better than all the other ones. And you're going to tell your friends about it. You're going to bring your family in on Monday, and everybody's going to come down and get the $1 wings. But what's the problem with that? They're not making money on the $1 wings. So they learned from that, but they didn't add the wings to their menu. So I hope that makes sense. But that's a lesson that may not have necessarily helped them, change what they were doing or add the wings to the menu because they couldn't make it work financially. But they're listening to their customers, and they're learning from their customers, and they're valuing their customers, and they're continuing to build the company because they're getting feedback. So I hope that pizza company will be in business for a long time because they have done a good job of listening to customers and continuing to iterate. Okay, Harrison, I think this is your slide.
Yeah, so this is just a visualization of some of the stages of growth that a startup can expect to go through. I think one interesting takeaway from this is if you notice the big magnifying glass there, that's really around your launching point, right? It's just your launch of your product. This is your launch as a startup. So there's a lot that goes into that launch before you actually get there and before you actually, go to market, grow as a company, and eventually mature out of that startup status. So just quickly, we have here, what we have here down there is ideation. You may also think of that as the validation stage. So it's a lot of what we just talked about. And this is, validating your business concept and figuring out what that market demand actually looks like. This will involve prototyping. This will involve those customer discovery surveys, and taking in all that early customer feedback and building that into your iterative process. And then as we get into finding that product market fit down there in green, this is another way of thinking about who your customer is and how they what channels they'll purchase your product or service through, where they'll access that product, what you can expect realistically to what part of this existing market can you realistically expect to attain. I know that we mentioned in that last webinar, there were a few terms that we throw around a lot that are like TAM, SAM, and SOM, total addressable market, serviceable, attainable market, and that's SOM, sorry, serviceable, obtainable market. I'm getting my terms mixed up
One's
here.
addressable, one's obtainable.
Addressable,
So
obtainable.
Well,
the last one is the one that is what you can realistically expect to attain out of all so if you have a certain type of product, an example that we've used before is like an invention for the healthcare industry, some kind of medical device, right? So you are not going to be able to sell this device to every hospital globally, right? Or every healthcare provider, every clinic. You're going to be you're going to have geographic limitations. You're going to have limitations based on what your product actually does and what problems and what types of customers you are addressing. And then you also have the existing businesses in that category, in that space, who may already have their own ways of addressing some of these problems. They may have some brand loyalty already built into that. So you need to consider all that. How easy, how accessible is that market for you to actually get a piece of it? And once you do get that slice of your market, being able to pin a number on that can be very useful, especially for those tech companies as they, maybe work on a federal funding application, SBIR, STTR, as Karen works with. So understanding all that is really key to getting to that point of launch, right? Before you're actually out there, before your product or service hits the market, you have a handle on who your customer will be and how many of them can you expect out there that fit that profile, as well as what problems you're solving or addressing, what pain points you're addressing more specifically.
Yeah, and it's nuanced because people talk about, well, what do you mean by launch? If I have a minimum viable product and people are using it and testing it, haven't I launched? So having these stages of growth kind of helps you look at that, because I think no, the answer is no. Maybe you're not, when we say launch, you're not fully at the point where you can say there's product market fit. And looking at this again, and it's interesting, I'm thinking, and I'm sort of applying my own learning because I did watch Shark Tank again so recently last night. And I'm thinking, when do investors like the sharks want to put money in? And when they ask the questions that they do, if you watch the show, they want to know what your sales are. They want to know how you're valuing the company. And they wouldn't even be looking at these companies if they didn't have some traction in the marketplace and some established value. But the reason people go on the Shark Tank is to get additional money to scale or to accomplish the next level up, right? And so a lot of times when they say, well, what do you want the money for? They'll say, well, we need to do marketing, or we need to hire some more people, or we need to ramp up our production. We need to get out of this facility and expand into a larger facility. And so where are the sharks, by the way, in that process? When somebody walks into the Shark Tank and starts pitching, they have the MVP, they have a minimum viable product, or they wouldn't be talking about it. The investment in the pink could mean, and a lot of them are bootstrapping, or they've got friends and family, or some of them may be a little more mature and they've actually, got other, equity-based type investors. But most of them are somewhere near that magnifying glass trying to find their product market fit. And that's why they get feedback from the sharks who may say, I'm sorry, that's not something I would invest in because I don't see it moving past this point. And so our little chart here says go to market right after the product market fit. So I think a lot of times I hate to say it, but the sharks can do two things. They can either say thumbs up and your business will take off like crazy, or you get advertising on the show. If they say no and they don't invest, you get advertising, and that could help if you're an online based business, or if you're just trying to use the show to get awareness, right? Or it can escalate. It can really take off. It can help your business take off where that go to market is legitimate and you're a going concern and you're making a lot of money, and then all of a sudden you find yourself growing and expanding because you have found your sweet spot and you're solving a real problem. So at maturity, and of course most of these companies, these tech-based companies, start with the end in mind. They're thinking, and I see that Tim put something in the chat about, us incorporating design thinking. The idea of iterating and testing something is design thinking. Design thinking is about ideation and continuous improvement. So it's using the feedback loop to ask the questions, to get the answers, to make adjustments, and then to forge ahead with something new or different. So it's interesting because all of these fields use similar terms or different terms to describe the same process. Science calls them hypotheses. Engineers call them the design process. Entrepreneurs call it, commercialization and lean canvas. We're talking about the same thing. And if you're beginning with the end in mind, you're thinking about how big the company you'd like for the company to grow, but you have to prove that the company is going to grow before you can get to the point where you could exit. And honestly, you cannot, everything you'll read about Lean Canvas or any of these books or things I'm getting ready to share with you as resources, everything you read will say you can't predict when you're going to exit, and you don't know when you're going to hit that milestone. You may have a plan for exit. You may want to sell the company at a certain time. You may want to get out of it and become a millionaire or join the board and, live a different life after you get it to a certain point, let a bigger company take over and keep it growing and keep it going. You may have an idea of what you would like that end point to be or that your exit to be, but you can't always predict when that's going to happen. We're talking about, capitalism. We're talking about the free market, and there are a lot of forces at work to either encourage and support and continue to breathe life into your little company. But there are just as many forces at work that can potentially harm it or delay its growth or even potentially kill it. It's a game. So if you're in this and you're an entrepreneur that's going to play the game, you're going to constantly be learning and responding and changing. And so we just thought, there are a lot of models to help describe what we're talking about. And I mentioned that Lean Canvas started, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. I'm not exactly sure, but the Startup Owner's Manual was the first. Steve Blank is kind of the guru, and he really gets credit for the startup methodology, particularly in the tech industry. And he has made significant contributions to the entrepreneurial education realm. So a lot of universities and the National Science Foundation use the Startup Owner's Manual and his methods to train. Like Stanford uses it, Berkeley uses it, Columbia University uses it. And he was kind of the first. And then interestingly, one of the things he's most famous for is this idea of getting out of the building. And that's the core principle of customer discovery. Like, you can't talk to yourself, you can't talk to your friends, you can't just ask your friends and your family to validate you. You have to get out and talk to customers. And there are multiple ways to learn to do this. And so there's a whole cottage industry that has grown up around training would-be entrepreneurs in this process of customer discovery. So the second book, Giff Constable wrote the Talking to Humans, which is actually a very practical guide about how to design the interviews and how a startup can uncover the things that they need to hear from customers by asking the right questions, by listening well, and by writing them down and learning from those responses. So Talking to Humans is a really great workbook in a way, a practical guide in how to do that. And there are links to each of these if you in the slideshow, so you can look at them or buy them later if you want to. And then finally, and it can't go understated how important Eric Ries has been to the Lean Startup movement. The Lean Startup book was written probably 2010, 2011, something like that. And he is the person who really is credited with the idea of continuous improvement, and that these lean principles, when they say lean, what they really mean is, this is hard to explain, but just like lean manufacturing is just-in-time manufacturing, not biting off more than you can chew, not getting more inventory before you can ship it, not paying for something you don't really need to pay for until you need it to advance the business to some next level. So the idea of lean startups is to be judicious about how you grow and what you add as a cost when, and how you use the input from the marketplace to actually make your company better and not lose money while you're doing it, and learn to make money to the point where you are meeting investor expectations and making your company more attractive to potential funders, right? So it's really that lean startup mentality is what an investor would be interested in, because they don't want all the fat. They don't want all the fluff. They don't want all the costs. They don't want all the burdens of a business. They want you to run it lean, and they want to be able to make money on it. And it is kind of a philosophy. It's kind of interesting. And there's another book I want to share, Business Model Generation, written by Alexander Osterwalder and his colleague. And this company called Strategizer, with the spelled STRATEGYZER, you can go online and get a lot of their free sources, and some of the things I think they charge for, but Strategizer with the Y, put a couple of links there that are helpful. There's the book, Business Model Generation, you can order online, but then Strategizer has a great bank of resources and even courses like the one I included here, the Understanding Customers. I think it costs $400. It's self-paced, but it's like 4 hours. And it just really takes you through deeply through the content, helps you learn it, helps you do a self-paced kind of learning opportunity. And then Udacity, which is an online course delivery platform, great business model, by the way. Udacity is also selling courses, but they cost more, and they are deeper and richer. And so that's their value proposition. You know, Strategizer gives you little sound bites that are affordable in little chunks, and Udacity gives you the whole course, but you don't have to go to Princeton or Harvard Business School or Stanford to get some of the same depth of learning. But if you're willing to throw down, you know, $1,200 or $1,500 or whatever, you can get a pretty good course and get pretty deep in this. And so I thought the How to Build a Startup was kind of an interesting one to point out. And then some other resources, just briefly, the videos. I thought these were cute. The Lean Canvas one on the left uses Uber, and it was a little creepy to me when I first started listening to it, because it's only 8 minutes, but it's one of those voices where the narrator almost sounds like an artificial like a bot or something. Her voice is just kind of, wasn't even sure it was a real person, but it's very helpful, very short, and actually through the course of the 8 minutes, the animation fills out each of the blocks in the Lean Canvas for Uber. So it's a great example of a familiar product for you, or product or service, to show what their Lean Canvas looks like. And then the one on the right, I love these. I love the little whiteboard videos where they sketch on a little whiteboard and they draw while the narrator's talking, and it's visual and it helps guide you through a thought process and tells a bit of a story. That one is the 5 takeaways. It's like a review of the book, The Lean Startup, and it's the 5 main either things that the creator of this thought were useful for you to know, or sort of debunking some of the myths so that you would understand the difference between something. So I thought that was really cool. This screen grab that I got was the myth of, and you'd have to watch this to understand, but that one's like, I think 13 minutes. So if you want to look at those later, that's just kind of a little bonus, threw those in. I thought those were fun. Okay, so what kind of market research do I need? And this is really Harrison's bailiwick. This is his wheelhouse. So if you don't mind, Harrison, I'd like you to talk just a little bit more about our customer discovery type and other primary or secondary research tools that we use or that we can recommend for you, regardless of what kind of business you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about market research, again, what we provide is in the context of business consulting, one-on-one consulting. So we provide a lot of information that can be really directly used directly acted upon as you're building like those business plans, marketing plans, and things of that nature. So on the next slide, we have a few examples of the databases that we pull from. Again, this is our secondary market research. So on the right, you'll see a couple logos. Those are some of the proprietary databases that we have access to. I believe a few of them do have some free features out there. I know that Esri, for example, they have a zip code lookup tool. So if your business is, is operating in kind of more locally than a lot of what we were just talking about, this may be very interesting to you to check out the demographics of an area. They have this thing called tapestries, which matches uh, it matches the different percentages of people within your trade area that fit into that fit into these specific categories that would be more likely to purchase certain things. And it answers those psychographic questions. What do they value? What types of things are important to them? And that may be useful for you as you build your businesses. As you see there, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's just kind of a overview of how you can be competitive in a certain industry. We have business trends and drivers. These can be, again, pretty local. BizMiner, as you see there on the screen, that helps us really get a lot of granular, local financial data about these industries. For instance, if you're opening up a barber shop and you want to know what's the financial state of barber shops in Pulaski County, we can pull information like that for you to kind of shed a light on that industry locally, as well as having access to these other reports that can be that can be national, it can be statewide, regional. Um, and then, of course, we also do provide competitor listings. So again, this is just getting a pulse on as you are asking yourself, who is your customer, and performing that primary research. These kinds of things can also be these can be supplemental to that whole process. To get a handle on how your business or proposed business product or service would fit into the existing landscape. And on the next slide, when you get this slideshow sent to you, you'll be able to, kind of explore through these links. These are secondary research resources that you can use. To the best of our knowledge, all these are free except for that last bullet point. That's Statista and Dun and Bradstreet. Those are two things that we use, but they do have some free services on their website as in addition to their paid services. So these are just a few things that you can explore. Census.gov is a really great resource if you're interested in demographic information, purchasing data. It's a really great place to start. And they have a lot of different ways that you can search and build tables on their website. It's fairly user friendly. If that's something that you're interested in, they also provide their own set of webinars and guides on how to more efficiently use their research tools. But all those are available for free on census.gov. So yeah, those are a few things that we wanted to share with you. And never be afraid to do your own searching, and just be cognizant of who is where that information is coming from and whether or not it is something that you can trust. But I mean, there's a lot out there. There's also trade associations. So depending on your industry, you may want to research, is there a national or regional association for business owners in my industry? Sometimes they provide their own reports, their own data. Um, So that's something to keep an eye on as well. But there's a lot out there, and again, we're happy at ASBTDC to help with the things that we have access to that are behind paywalls. And we provide that again. We're providing value in that service through giving that information in the context of one-on-one consulting. We're not just throwing that information at you and hoping that, you'll read through everything. We try to do it in a manner that is easy to understand, but still provides you the full breadth of that information.
Yes. And we're getting close to the end, and I just have one more slide, and I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't. We don't know who always is going to come to these and who will show up for the day of, but I appreciate you all and your patience. But we did have an extra slide in case we had some tech people there. Faculty and students from any university in Arkansas can participate in I-Corps, which is like, it's the customer discovery process on steroids. And it is an intensive multi-week course and cohortal based program that requires innovators to do these customer interviews. So you don't get to fake it and you don't get to pretend. You have to really dive in, and it's considered a real great training ground and one of the actual pipelines for science and technology, engineering, math, STEM-based type innovation in America. The National Science Foundation sponsors this, and it's become such an important tool when we're looking at trying to marry people in science with people in business, or create scientists who can speak the language of business and help lead these companies and recruit high quality, smart people to help them run these businesses so they'll be successful. So the federal government not only invests in small business innovation research grants, but they also support it in terms of the pipeline of entrepreneurs. They supply a lot of educational resources like this I-Corps program. And there is a summer program this year that is being run out of the University of Arkansas Fayetteville. And so that I went ahead and supplied that link because I didn't know if we were going to have any faculty or students online, or if you are in a position, those of you who are attending, if you're in a position to share this I-Corps opportunity with any faculty or staff at the university that you may be affiliated with, or that's in your community, or that you have a relationship with, because they're recruiting for it now. And if your faculty or students have time to attend it, and I don't know what all the time commitment is, but it's, I understand it's pretty immersive, that it can help you understand those market needs, refine the value proposition. A lot of our student teams in Arkansas will compete. We just got back 2 weeks ago, we went to the Governor's Cup. I helped judge it this year. We have a lot of undergrad and graduate students pitching, testing their ideas, doing these pitch contests and business plan writing contests for money. But the idea behind the prize money is really, it's like their first sort of test in the marketplace to see whether the idea is viable or if they should continue pursuing it. And we were on a call the other day with that had the entrepreneurial leaders from both. We were trying to expand this to rural areas. And so the entrepreneurial folks from Ouachita Baptist were there in Arkadelphia, and then UAPB in Pine Bluff. And while most of the business plans or budding entrepreneurs would be coming out of the undergraduate ranks at their schools, they don't have as many master's degree programs or terminal degrees, PhD programs, doctoral level programs, and maybe not even as much hard sciences, but good ideas come from everywhere. So we are trying to continue casting our net and including as many of these young entrepreneurs as we can, and the educational processes that lead to growing our businesses ourselves here in Arkansas. There are whole other members of the ecosystem that are devoted to economic development, which means they're recruiting companies and bringing them into the state and bringing their workforce with them. And those people buy homes and raise their kids here and become transplants, but that's one growth strategy for the state of Arkansas. Another one is growing them ourselves. And there is a lot of really interesting and strong data to support that job growth as a net growth contributing to the gross domestic product is actually greater from small businesses than it is from established large companies or brand names, big manufacturers, that kind of thing. So small businesses, new job starts, job growth through organic growth of these companies that we're creating and helping support in the state of Arkansas produce more. And Harris and I are particularly attuned in our jobs and the grant that pays me in particular to those that are creating high paying jobs, because, we in the knowledge economy, the workforce that you need to help grow and sustain these companies is they're getting paid better. And, and they can be technically harder, or they can require more levels of advanced education. It really just depends. When I say high paying jobs, I don't mean just those people that have PhDs or master's degrees. I mean high paying jobs because the jobs are technically either difficult or there's a higher demand placed on them, or perhaps a higher value in terms of salary or the way they're compensated in the marketplace. So that is our I-Corps pitch. And here's our contact information. I think we can open up. And does anybody have any questions, or does anybody want to drop any questions in the chat? I mean, if you want to talk, we've got a few more minutes. You can come off mute. You can turn on your camera. We could just have a little powwow. There's so few people. I didn't know how many people were going to come, but it's a small group today. So if you want to just come off your, turn on your camera or come off mute and just join Harrison and I here in the last couple of minutes, and I believe Meredith is still on the call. If you don't mind, we're still recording. So if you have any specific questions, or you just want to contribute something, please feel free to do so now. And if we don't have any takers, if everybody's, just being quiet, and I hope this was I don't see anybody raising their hand or coming off mute. So I hope this was of value to you today. And again, we will provide the slides and a copy of the recording in a follow-up email. I encourage you to, take a look at maybe some of the resources, or spend some time with the ones that might have appealed to you while you were taking notes or listening in. And I hope that this helps sort of at least give you an introduction to Lean Canvas and the idea of customer discovery and what additional market research you may want to think about or gain access to. As you, start a venture or grow your own venture. And we just are excited to be a part of that and to help you. And like I said, I'll make one more pitch to help with the Lean Canvas. If anybody wants help exploring their own, I think I can do that under my grant. We are charged with mentoring and just helping people learn. So please, now for the market research products that Harrison delivers, I think you need to be a client for sure, and actively involved in growing a company, or if you're pursuing seed funding with the SBIR grant that I work with, you need to be able to be working on an SBIR application to get our heavy duty market research. So thank you for your comments in the chat, and thank you for putting up with our long-windedness. Harrison and I we get in our heads and we talk, and I appreciate you listening. It was a lot, and I guess that's it. Anything else? Thank you for your comments. Thank you for and please fill out the evaluation when you get it. And if you have any ideas for additional topics, please put those in your evaluation, or things that might have sparked when we were talking. You're like, oh, I'd like to know more about that. Please include that in your evaluation. It really helps us with planning our training in the coming months. And we can, if we don't already have it, we can develop topics too. So just let us know what you'd like to learn or what you'd like to explore. That it? It's a wrap.
Thanks everybody for staying with us.
Okay. I'm gonna hop off. I think Meredith has what she needs. Okay, great. Later.
Guess I'm gonna
Thanks,
stop the
Harrison.
recording.
Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
Do we need to stop the recording or?
Hey, oh, I think Meredith
I've got
has.
it. Yeah,
Meredith.
I got it.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Meredith.
Meredith.
And I'll just end the meeting, I guess.